Alright, let's get this over with. I'm a furry. Enough! Enough. I am a furry. There, I said it. By the way, you all sound like my wife dismissing me and stuff. Come on. I have been in the fandom for quite a while now. Um, honestly, probably since the 4th grade, but I've embraced my furriness a lot recently. Went to Golden State FurCon this year. Here's the badge. That being said, this video is going to make my wife a little extra upset with my funky hobby. So let's get this out of the way. This video is going to discuss some of the darker moments in the furry fandom. I'm going to start pretty light, with things not necessarily dark, but kind of like funny, but weird. As for the dark stuff, we are going to be discussing some sensitive topics. So if you are opposed to the following, uh, sex, murder, animal cruelty, I suggest you skip this one. I have quite a few other videos you can watch, or you could just wait for the next one. It might be something lighter, probably will be something lighter, so you can sit this one out. I totally understand. I'll be real, some of this was hard for me to research, so yeah. That being said, let's get started with ever since the birth of the furry fandom in the 80s, room parties have been a staple of any convention. Getting their roots at sci-fi conventions such as WesterCon or San Diego Comic-Con, furries would gather in hotel rooms, in room parties, and here they would discuss fandom-related topics, that being comics or watching Disney movies or what have you. The fandom has come a long way in the last 40 years, but one thing remains the same. There will always be room parties. Biggest Little FurCon, or BLFC 2021, was a crazy weekend. This was one of the few conventions that weren't canceled, rescheduled, or moved to an online platform during the COVID pandemic. After over a year of stressful lockdowns and health scares, furries wanted nothing more than to gather in Reno, Nevada for a weekend full of leisure and debauchery. On September 22nd, 2021, Twitter user Maine Wolfie tweeted a poll asking if people wanted to, well, shoot the shit over some pizza. Out of the 577 votes, nearly 68% of them decided, yeah, I want to join in on the pizza party. Soon enough, October 22nd came, and so did some furries. On day 2 of BLFC, 6 Papa John's pizzas were ordered to the hotel, and one of them was being sacrificed to the party comers. Party goers. At 10:30 p.m. that night, Maine Wolfie ended up posting a tweet with the resulting pie and the act in action. Notably, in the final image, there was a bite taken out of one of the slices of the pizza. 3 minutes later, it was reported that the pizza was just left in the middle of the hallway. There were even reports of some curious furs examining and even going as far as to touch the pizza. And eventually, after 3 hours, the pizza was disposed of properly. While not necessarily a dark moment in the fandom, it's something funny and weird that I wanted to discuss today to just, I guess, loosen you guys up a bit. While Midwest FurFest and Anthrocon are currently the most popular and currently attended furry conventions, there is one furry convention that stands out, one that is discussed in and outside of the fandom. That is Rainfurrest 2015. Backstory time. Rising from the ashes of Conifer Northwest, with their initial con being in 2007, Rainfurrest 1 boasted 370 attendees. The con rapidly grew, exceeding 2,000 yearly visitors by 2013. The final Rainforest in 2015 had 2,700 guests, with about 500 of them participating in the fursuit parade. While that last part isn't important, I just thought it was cool that many people participated. That's awesome. The con carried on for 8 years, relatively seamlessly. However, the 9th year was the year to end them all. Seriously, the con doesn't exist anymore after this year. They're literally blacklisted from every hotel chain in the Seattle and surrounding areas. Before I discuss why they're banned, though, we gotta get a little kinky. Basically, there's a kink called ABDL, Adult Baby Diaper Lover. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, adults who enjoy wearing diapers and acting like babies. And they really like diapers, like really, like especially the goings on within those diapers. And I guess it goes without saying that Rainfurrest 2015 had a significant amount of ABDL furs in attendance. And normally, I don't like to yuck someone's yum so long as they keep it in the bedroom, but they didn't. It all really started to go downhill on day two when somebody posted on Twitter a photo of a furry wearing a clearly soiled diaper in the middle of the hotel. Just a side note, they're a MAGA fur, and I just think that's really funny because that's talk about an oxymoron. Some of these ABDL furs took it upon themselves to dispose of their diapers, not in a trash can, no, but in the bushes or on people's cars or wherever all over the hotel. Disposing your diapers in a trash can, that'd be too easy. Let's put it on some random family station wagon. That was their thought process, I guess. The diapers weren't the end of it though. Some congoers purposefully flooded the toilets, unscrewing certain things, messing with the plumbing, and this caused 2.5 inches of water to flood all over the floors of the hotel. Some people rolled up towels and shoved them into the pump of the swimming pool. This caused even more very expensive damages. Remember in that last entry when I mentioned room parties? Well, some of these furs decided to disable the smoke alarms in their hotel rooms just so they could smoke a little weed. This is not even to mention the copious amounts of empty alcohol cans and bottles left all over the place. Some elevators in the hotel were even out of order after this event because of some people being too aggressive with the buttons. This specific convention caused so many expensive damages that Rainforest was banned from being held at the Seattle Airport Hilton. Actually, they were banned from every hotel and con space in the surrounding area. This resulted in Rainforest being canceled inevitably. Yes, they did try to make comebacks in 2016 and even 2017, but they all fell through. And this con is now defunct. Now people don't typically look back on the memories of Rainforest 2007 through 2014. All that's really remembered is the disaster that was Rainforest 2015. Midwest FurFest is a yearly furry convention typically held about a week after Thanksgiving. As mentioned previously, Midwest FurFest is among the most popular furry conventions, with attendance being in the tens of thousands. The most recent event in 2024 had about 16,800 attendees. It's such a popular event that over $1 million have been raised for charity in its 25-year run. Knowing this, it's safe to say furries feel safe to have fun for 3 days going to room parties and panels and late night raves. Furry conventions are typically places where you can be yourself and make lifelong friendships or even indulge in a bit of degeneracy. I don't really judge, not too much at least. However, in the early morning hours of December 7th, 2014, con attendees were in for a very, very rude awakening. At around 12:45 a.m., quite a few con attendees began having itchy, watery eyes and very strong coughs. While many furs were downstairs enjoying the late night dance party, there were still quite a few furs up late and enjoying room parties in the upper floors of the hotel, and they got really sick. The smell grew stronger and stronger throughout the hotel, with some people claiming it smelled like the strongest pool shock they've ever smelled in their lives. As it turns out, in the ninth floor stairwell, an unknown person broke a glass bottle full of powdered chlorine. This inevitably led the hotel to be evacuated. Chlorine gas has the ability to immediately affect the upper and lower respiratory tract. This can be fatal. So I'm sure you can imagine chaos ensued. The whole hotel was evacuated, and many of the furries were just straight up confused. Some of them were in full fursuit, and others came from a room party and they were in kink gear. Now, a lot of these furries were just stuck waiting outside in the December cold with no clue of what was going on. In these hours full of confusion, the fire department showed up and tested the chlorine levels in the stairwell, with results being astronomical. However, later on, it was found out that a lot of the equipment they were using was faulty, so the results ended up being inconclusive in the end. And these results couldn't technically be used as evidence. The next morning, MSNBC aired a now infamous news story where 2 out of 3 anchors couldn't hold in their laughter discussing the incident.
19 people were hospitalized at a furry convention in Illinois after what's being called an intentional leak of chlorine
What's
gas.
a furry convention?
Did I get that wrong?
Leaked there. Oh, gosh.
Okay. Officials were called when a strong odor of chlorine spread.
Hotel
Where are you going?
Contaminated.
Hey,
Guests came back inside at 4 a.m. Police still
Come back.
the matter as a criminal investigation.
Could you check on Mika, see if she's okay? She's over there.
Honestly, it's disgusting. Like, okay, I get it. A bunch of people in fursuit was all that was really filmed. It's funny, I guess, to see people dressed as big bunnies or whatever. But this was a serious attack that threatened the lives of innocent people just trying to enjoy a weekend. Following this, there were reports of furries that had to be transported to the emergency room coughing up blood, and some had a lingering cough for the weeks following the event. I mean, that's not really something to laugh about, now is it? Unfortunately, nobody was ever caught or persecuted for committing this attack. However, there was a strong lead with infamous fandom member Magnus Duridian. But again, that also ended up being inconclusive. But I definitely will be discussing him, among others, another time in a part 2. In the end, furries ended up coming together stronger than ever during everything going on. In the midst of everything, there was a group of furries that made a run to McDonald's just to grab a shit ton of cheeseburgers to feed a bunch of people stranded in the cold. Some people coming straight from room parties gave others wine and other forms of strong alcohol to keep each other warm. Unlike Rainfurrest, Midwest FurFest continues to this day, and they're about to hold their 26th annual event later this year. Currently, Midwest FurFest is the biggest furry convention in the world, and nothing is slowing them down. Through what was basically a mass murder attempt, furries came together and they loved each other and supported each other, and I think that's pretty cool. Now, here's where we get dark. Like, very, very dark. If you cannot handle hearing about the abuse of animals, I suggest you skip this segment or just leave the video entirely. Although I'm not going into intense detail, I don't want anybody to be too upset. September of 2018 started relatively normal. However, the furry fandom had other plans. Twitter user Zoodonym tweeted, "No more covering for these people. These are not what zoophiles are." And you may be asking, what are zoophiles? They are people who are sexually attracted to animals. Disgusting, deranged, and deplorable. But what Zoodonym was about to expose was all of that, but 10 times more evil. Zoodonym linked to a Telegram group showing evidence of so-called zoo sadists. These were zoophiles who took pleasure in harming animals physically and sexually, be it alive or dead. The group that Zoodonym linked to contained images, videos, and RAR files containing chat logs from this disgusting Telegram group chat. These horrible people would show themselves drugging their own pets or finding dead animals on the side of the road and doing things with them, abusing them. It's horrible, and it makes me sick talking about it, thinking about it, researching it. Notably, a Popufur, Kiro the Wolf, was a prominent member in these group chats. He documented the abuse of his own dog and claimed he felt so guilty and sorry once the dog eventually got sick and died. Hero, being the stand-up guy he is, claimed his Telegram was hacked once everything got leaked. He said he had no part of the group chat. He frankly had no idea what it was. The thing is, Telegram is purposefully very hard to tamper with, as every chat and every account is encrypted. Kiro provided zero proof that his account was actually hacked, and if anything, the hacker had way too much personal info on Kiro. Like, he would say things in the group chat before Kiro could even tweet it. Apparently, another horrible, disgusting member of this chat, Snake Thing, initially gave Zoodonym access to this server chat, whatever, because of some kind of blackmail fetish. This whole thing makes me sick. I don't want to discuss it more than I have to. There's many other videos on it on the internet that you can go to instead. These people are the absolute scum of the earth. That's my takeaway. Sometimes being a furry can be a family affair, as it was for this family. Stepdad Christopher and mother Jennifer Yoast were major participants in the furry community. They even had their daughter, known as Daydreamer, involved in their fandom activities. Jennifer Yoast was considered a sort of mother figure to many Southern California furries. The three family members would always go to local furry conventions and continuously attend La Habra Fur Bowling. It's basically an event where furries gather and go bowling. That's self-explanatory. This is where they met Frank Felix and Josh Acosta. Felix, being 25 years old, ended up starting a romantic relationship with the Yoast's daughter, Daydreamer, when she was only 17. At some point, Daydreamer opened up to Felix and Acosta about alleged abuse going on within the household. This is when the two men decided to take matters into their own hands, getting Daydreamer into a car in the early hours of September 24th, 2018. She sat in waiting with Felix, while Acosta entered the family home with a shotgun that was given to him by Felix. Acosta ended up taking the lives of Christopher Yoast, Jennifer Goodwill Yoast, and house guest Arthur William Boucher, also known as Billy. Daydreamer, Felix, and Acosta drove away and burned their clothes and went into hiding, hoping to get away from the crime seamlessly. However, the next morning, Daydreamer's 6 and 9-year-old sisters stumbled upon the lifeless bodies of their parents and had to call 911. That was when the manhunt began. It honestly didn't last long, though, as Acosta was quickly found in Fort Irwin, California, and Felix was found in Sun Valley, California, with Daydreamer. Daydreamer ended up getting immunity for the case so long as she testified against the killer duo. As of November 2018, Josh Acosta pleaded guilty to 3 counts of murder. This earned him a life sentence plus 75 years for special circumstance charges. Recently, in April of 2025, Frank Felix was given 3 consecutive life sentences, with no possibility of parole for these murders. The furry fandom can definitely be a dark and dangerous place. I mean, it's arguably the most hated fandom on the internet, with self-admitted degenerates occupying websites like Fur Affinity, Twitter, Reddit, and E621. However, there are good sides to it. While there definitely are people who are into the spicier aspects of the fandom, a majority of them aren't actually into animals. And there's always time to stop your local furry on the side of the road and ask him for a big hug. Furries are wild and crazy, but every fandom has their freaks. I mean, I accidentally stumbled upon some crazy SpongeBob fan fiction in 6th grade. That was traumatizing. But my point is that the freaks are everywhere. If there are some incidents I didn't discuss today and you want me to talk about them more, maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video. Just let me know. There will be a sort of part 2 to this video already coming as soon as possible, where I'll discuss the more controversial members of the furry fandom. So I guess expect that in like a month or 2. So go and hug your local furry today, or your furry friend at home. I have my cat right here, and she's listening to me ramble right now, so I'm gonna give her a bunch of kisses later. Anyway, that is the end of this video. I just wanted to say thank you for watching. If you have a fursona, comment what species it is down below, and if you're not a furry, what's your favorite animal? That's your fursona. That's your honorary fursona. Thank you for watching. I have many ideas and scripts I'm working on right now for future videos. I took a lot of time off, but I'm ready to be creating stuff again. So I appreciate everyone who has stuck around and watched a lot of my content. I genuinely really appreciate that. So that's it. I hope you guys have a good day. Stay safe, stay hydrated. Bye.